I've been running a business for over 12 years now, and I've had 2 kids in just the last 4 of them. And if I'm being honest, the question I think about sometimes more than anything else these days is, how do I get done what I need to get done with the brain power and energy I actually have? Not the energy I used to have, not the energy I wish I had, the energy that's left after wrangling 2 little kids and running a company. So when I connected with today's guest, I got a little bit selfish about wanting her on the show. Dr. Tiffany Shelton is a neuropsychologist and published author who has spent over a decade helping ambitious women build what she calls a sustainable hustle, using evidence-based psychology, real systems, and alignment. She's the creator of the Impossible to Fail method. She's grown her YouTube channel to over 40,000 subscribers, teaching women how to systemize their goals. And her work has been featured everywhere from Rockford Press to the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease. Here's what made this conversation land for me. Tiffany doesn't come at productivity like a robot. She talks about slowing down to speed up, about building intentional white space into your week, finding the actual bottleneck in your business instead of just working hard on all the things around it. And she does it all from a human first place, which for women like us means accounting for the fact that we have cycles, we have babies, we have kids who get sick, and we are not machines. So if you've ever hit a revenue goal and felt strangely hollow, if you've ever sat down at your desk and had no idea what to actually work on that day, or maybe you've built so many systems that you accidentally systematized yourself out of the parts of the business you actually love, this one is for you. Here's my conversation with Dr. Tiffany Shelton. Let's get into it. Most business advice is built on one key assumption: that what worked for someone else will work for you too. The Nourished CEO podcast exists to challenge that assumption and point to a better way. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, strategic advisor and business coach with over 15 years of experience online and multiple millions of dollars earned from my own business. I'm also a mom of 2 and a devoted wife who runs it all in about 20 hours a week. This show is for the established coach, consultant, or service provider who is done following someone else's playbook and is ready to build a joyful, profitable business from their own authority. Every episode is a direct, no-filters conversation about the real challenges you're facing in your business, with honest strategy and practical action steps that you can actually use right now. Because working smarter and building something sustainable matters a lot more than just chasing a bigger number. No recycled advice or empty inspiration here, just honest, integrity-driven conversations about building a business that fits your life as much as it fits your goals, so that it gives more than it takes while nourishing everything you're building outside of it. If that sounds like the breath of fresh air you're looking for, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Nurse CEO podcast, Tiffany.
Thank you. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this topic for a selfish reason, because I feel like myself personally, having run a business at this point for 12 years and having had kids in the last 4 years, this is like half of what I think about in terms of how I run my day-to-day. How do I actually get done what I need to get done with the limited brain power that I have, the limited energy that I have, and just all the different things that are happening during the day to try to wrangle 2 little kids. So I'm super excited to have you on the show. For those people who are not familiar with you yet, could you share with us just your general story? I'm sure there's a lot you could share, but your story about how you got into this work and started and are now growing your business, helping entrepreneurs create systems to support all of the busyness that they're experiencing in life and entrepreneurship.
Yeah, all the things. Definitely, of course. Well, thanks for having me here. I'm super excited to have this discussion. So I kind of got into this, or it's kind of ironic, I guess, how I got started doing what I do now is because I always considered myself a very productive person. I was always busy, but I ran more so on like push through and coffee and make it work and late nights. And when I became a mom, like the need from I went from a need to just be productive to actually needing systems because it couldn't rely on those things anymore. After like one too many late nights, my husband kind of sat me down and was like, I know your goals need you, but we need you too. I was showing up more irritable because I was had so much on my plate of like being a new mom, but also I was a neuropsychologist already at that time, accomplished on paper. Some from the outside might think I was very productive because I was very busy. But I was going through like cycles of overwhelm and frustration that I had worked too hard to really be still working this hard. And so that's when I decided I had to take everything I knew about productivity because I'd been blogging for, well, I'm going to age myself, over a decade about how to create a sustainable hustle and productivity and all the things. So I decided I need to take everything I knew about productivity in neuroscience as a neuropsychologist and research systems on how to make it autopilot. So how could I take everything I knew about getting things done, but create structure through systems to do that? So in my obsessive way, I did a deep dive on systems. I started applying all the things I was learning for myself with clients that I was working with at the time on goal achievement, and was able to come up with a framework that I call my flourishing efficiency system, that really helps you have the structure in the background to support your high ambitions, your type A personality, all the things of being like an ambitious woman.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like because it's funny you said I'm gonna date myself. I think I
Mhm.
started blogging in 2011,
Yeah,
so I feel like there's
we were right in there.
yeah, I feel like there is a lot of stuff that has changed since then, and I agree with you. When you become a mom, it's like anything that you were able to do just based on sheer will,
Yeah,
it's like you just can't anymore. And I think for me, going from one to two kind of really like sealed the deal
yeah,
on that
yeah.
being an issue. Because I feel like with one kid, I mean,
You
I know
make
it's
it
hard
work.
going, well, it's like if they're asleep or like, one person's got them, it's like, I don't know. It's just so different. Whenever I have one child now, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so easy to have one
Yeah,
kid.
this is
So
paradise.
I
Yeah.
know. So going from one to two is like, all right, we no longer can just like, make it work in the margins anymore. We really need to actually make some really intentional decisions about how things are running.
Right.
And I was mentioning to Tiffany before we hit record that a lot of that for me is actually like descaling things right now to, if I am going to scale back, to really build it in the context of, needing everything to be systematized and not just be like, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, as they say. So you talk about business owners who always feel like they're constantly putting out fires as part of their business. So what does that actually look like day to day? Because I feel like we hear a lot of that term putting out fires, but it's obviously a metaphor. What would
hmm
that look like for somebody where they feel really busy, they feel really productive, they're like, I'm getting so much done, I'm working like 8, 10,
Yeah.
plus hour days, but they're not really moving the needle. What does that actually look like for someone in that situation?
Yeah, so I see it with the women I work with in a couple different ways. The first way is probably the more obvious way is that your day is just full of reactivity instead of intentionality. So you're reacting to things that come in, your schedule or lack thereof, your day is filled with reacting to things that come up, deadlines that come up, a team member that maybe needs you to jump in and solve things. You're reacting to maybe a not as structured launch that you need to just get things done for. So it's more of a day fueled by reacting than it is being really intentional. And then if you zoom out, the second way I see that is on a more meta level on you're putting out fires because you haven't you called it descaling. I teach my clients to streamline. So the very first system that I teach them is a goal system, which for my type A accomplished women who come to me that just want like the strategies and the hardcore, what do I do? It can be a little bit jarring for me to have them slow down to do this. I like to use the metaphor of like shooting a bow and arrow to hit a target. You have to pull back slowly, you have to aim, you have to focus, take a moment to breathe, and then let it go. And it goes at lightning speed straight to the target. So the first thing I really emphasize to women is to slow down to speed up. And that starts with it being really intentional with where you're going. So the goal system that I teach, if anyone wants to apply it, is you start off with who you are becoming. That's all your values, where you want to be in 10 years, where you want to be in 3 years, all that sort of larger picture goal work of who is the woman that you're becoming, even beyond the accomplished, hyper achieving person you are now. We all have those visions of where we're going to take this. And then most people jump from that straight to what they're going to do to get there. But there's a crucial piece in the middle that's going to help you streamline or descale, and that's your strategy. So, who are you becoming? And then, how are you going to get there most efficiently using the least amount of time and energy given your current life season? So, books like The One Thing and like Essentialism are really important for the work that I do there. It's really thinking about the not the plan, but if you think of like a football game, like the playbook, the strategy of how you're going to get there, and then the plan is actually on the field, like what you're actually doing. It's really thinking about beforehand. How can I do this most strategically? Where can I focus? What resources do I need more of? What do I need to learn that's going to get me there really quickly? And then once you have a good strategy, then you can focus on the what, which I teach is reverse goal planning. So that's where you want to get. Now you know how to get there most efficiently. How can we streamline even more to get there in like a reverse tactical sort of way using strategies like the 12-week year? And so that reactivity, once you start from that place of having like my season of my life, how am I going to get there? I know who I'm becoming. Your days can be more intentional because you know what that intention is. And it's not just willy nilly, like, I just want to make more money. You're
Hmm.
reacting from a place of, I know where I'm going. I know who I'm becoming. And this is what's most important. And some of these other things can maybe wait or get off the to-do list.
Hmm. Do you have any examples of what that goal might look like for somebody? Because I do think a lot of the people I work with, they want to make more money, they want to work less, and that's great, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that, but it is so nebulous as far
Hmm.
as, okay, well, if you're going to make more money, how are you going to make more money? Or what does working less look like? Because I think sometimes, like, I fell into this trap where the working less piece actually pulled me away from the stuff that I really like doing in my business, which is like
Hmm.
coaching and serving clients. And I ended up creating these systems that did a lot of that for me. And then I'm doing all this work that I'm like, I don't want to be sitting in team meetings, doing
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so it ended up kind of heading me in a direction that I was like, I don't really like this. So that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of backing up and saying, okay, like, let's try that again. But I'm just wondering, as far as setting those goals in an effective way for somebody who they might already think that they are very goal oriented, how does that look for them as far as like the difference between a goal set by somebody who's kind of just like frantically going after, this nebulous, I just want to
Yeah.
make more money versus somebody who's being really intentional about their goal setting.
Yeah. So I'm going to get woo woo for just a second.
Do
Stay with
it.
me. I really believe it's a combination of tapping into your higher self and your higher calling. And then, yes, I love values work, but we can go even a little bit deeper of like what's most important to us, which are our values. But if we get behind the why we even have those values, we tap into our higher self and our higher calling. And I think of our highest self, because I'm a spiritual person, think of it as the God inside me, but you can call it or think of it anything you want. But it's just like that place of you that is void of ego, that's void of like eldest daughter energy who's just accomplishing because that's how she felt safe. It's that part of you that is beyond being productive because you feel like that's where your worth comes from, is being needed and achieving. There's this more sacred part of yourself that is just like that inner observer that is more pure, if you will. And you have to take white space to connect with her and just have those moments of just being without all that other stuff that we've layered on top just through human existence, right? And survival.
Mhm.
So taking those moments to meditate, taking moments to journal, to pray, having actual white space built into your calendar so you have time with your true self. So much of your passions are going to come to the surface and evolve just from having moments of like clarity and space without doing.
Mhm.
So that's your highest self. And then your higher calling are those kind of downloads that you get from your higher power or from that time with white space of like, how do I want to use these gifts that God has given me and these blessings that I've received to create greater impact in this world beyond me? Maybe that's being, a bad entrepreneur so your daughter can see that women can be leaders. Maybe that's being the one in your family that people can go to borrow money because you're the chain breaker in your family and no one else has been able to help like you have because of the legacy that you're building. Maybe it's helping your community, whatever that is that you feel you're called to help outside of yourself. That can also lead you towards this combination of I'm in tune with achieving beyond it being my worth and how am I going to be impactful? So, how can I be a blessing and a testimony so that I can fulfill my higher purpose? That sort of work usually gets us beyond just the money because the money can be like the top layer, probably usually like a safety thing. And then there's usually other things beyond that that will keep you fueled and motivated so much longer and so much more powerfully than just that top layer.
I love that. And I feel like the revenue piece, money is so funny because it's like, yeah, having money and making money and having resources to be generous is so awesome. And
Hmm.
I think it's so easy for us as business owners to use money as like our report card or our measuring stick,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I love the eldest daughter concept because I'm the middle daughter. So I don't know.
Oh,
I know you're psychologist, right? I'm like, I gotta
yeah.
figure out what the middle daughter weirdness is that I'm experiencing. But it is one of those things where I feel like you can kind of end up pursuing money for the sake of like validating, like, I'm a good business owner if I make this amount of money, versus what you're saying about kind of having like a bigger purpose for the money that means something to you so that it's not just this like endless, I just have to be making more, more, more because that's what I'm supposed to do. And then you
Yeah.
realize, oh, this wasn't actually something that was even valuable to me or helpful, or, I've made all these sacrifices in order to get there and now it feels hollow.
Right.
So that's, and, I've been in business for 12 years at this point. It's like, I don't think I've quite gone off the rails, but I found myself going in that direction where I was like, why am I doing this stuff if it's literally just to hit this stupid arbitrary dollar amount that somebody else is like making a big deal about, but isn't actually meaningful to me?
Yeah, yeah. And the women that I work with, I get a lot of pushback on the white space concept because I try to get them to get 3 hours per week, work week, not like on the weekends, in their calendar that is just for white space. So during the work week. And as you can imagine, as a busy entrepreneur, I get a lot of pushback on that. And so one of the things that helps actually claim that white space is defining your enough. So if you think about time freedom and financial freedom, what's that like yummy, if you think of a Venn diagram, what's that overlap of enough time and enough money for you and your family and your goals that is enough for you. And maybe it's not seven figures, like you said. Maybe it's like you just heard that number because it sounded good in someone's ad that they were trying to sell you something. I don't know. But or maybe it is. Maybe it's multi seven figures because you have a greater desire and legacy you want to leave, but really defining for yourself. And once you have that enough idea in your head, it makes taking a break so much easier because one, either I need this white space to make the money that I want to make because I need to be able to come from like a strong foundation of, clarity and sleep and calmness and creativity. Or, wait a minute, I'm already hitting my enough goals. I have more than enough time to take this space for myself. So it can work in both ways. But I think sitting down and really thinking about your own goals versus, like you said, we can get, and myself included, into just the motions of like chasing a larger number once you hit something. There's a lot of research on that called the hedonic treadmill. Have you heard of it?
I think so, but explain it for our audience.
Yeah, it's this idea that a lot of high achievers suffer from, that once you hit one goal, it's lackluster. There's this dissatisfaction or underwhelming like effect once you hit our goal. It's not as satisfying as you might think when you set it. And so you immediately, without even celebrating or like a brief celebration, you set this new goal that's even higher and you kind of are on this treadmill of chasing more and more and more versus instead of being on a treadmill, taking what I call like a walk in the park, where you get to sit down on a bench, take a break because you know you're enough. You get to listen to the trees. You can keep walking when you want to. You can stop and smell the roses when you want to because you know you're enough.
hmm I see that a lot with people who they are very talented and they have big goals, and it's literally like they never ever have a moment where it's like, I'm good. Like
Mhm.
this is good. I created something good. A lot of the people that I end up working with are like, they hit that point where they're like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to be, to your point, on this treadmill that, I just keep working harder and harder and nothing is ever good enough. And it's like, you know, the expenses go up and yeah, my revenue went up and now like I'm making less than I made before when my revenue
Yeah.
was lower because I put all this stuff in place that is, supposed to be helping me make money, but now it's just making me crazy. So I definitely see that a lot. And I'm glad you're talking about it because it is something where these systems, I think sometimes people can approach systems with a very uh logical,
Hmm.
I just need the systems to help me be more productive, kind of like a hormozy type of productivity.
Hmm.
But I like that you're bringing in more of like the spiritual side of things into this productivity, because it's not just about how do we get as much possibly done during the day as possible.
Yes. And even when I get into the more like, I guess, tactical systems that I teach my clients, I like to come from productivity from a human first productivity approach, especially for women, because if you don't have menopause yet, when we are, women, we have cycles every month that make me ravenous and feral that I have to deal with. We have babies, hormones after having babies that we have to deal with and re-regulate, or even when, we're pregnant. Then we have children who we are raising these little humans who get sick all the time or need us in other various ways where a lot of us are partners and have to be there. So there's so many things that I think that us as moms or just women in general have to deal with, and don't add like perimenopause on top of it that maybe men don't necessarily have to deal with. And so I really like to approach productivity, even when building these systems, from a human first approach. And knowing that a big part of that is knowing that these systems are going to break and like expecting them to, and building that in, that you're not a robot and that productivity is not to make you a robot. It's to get you, where you want to be with your goals, not to make you try to be perfect.
Mm-hmm. So when somebody starts a business, a lot of times their ability to get stuff done, work hard, hustle, wear all the hats, like, check all the boxes, that can be really beneficial to getting things off the ground, to getting their first clients, to, launching their first program. At some point, it becomes a liability. Like
Hmm.
there's, and my own experience has been, it's not this, lightning bolt moment where all of a sudden everything is, not working the way it needs to. How does somebody know when they've crossed the line from, oh, I'm just being resourceful and committed and like doing what needs to be done for my business, versus, okay, now you're actually overwhelming your capacity, you're burning out? Like, how do they know when they've crossed that line, or if they're getting close to that line so hopefully they can actually not cross it?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. So the first thing that comes to my mind is it chronic? So is this happening, like the burnout? Is it happening in cycles that you could almost maybe even predict? Is usually when people come to me, because it's not just, I had a really hard launch, I'm tired, I'm going to recover, but it's like these cycles of burnout that feel almost like maybe even anxiety or depression. It could also be just a hard pushing on those boundaries and enoughness that you've set. So if you decided, this is a season where I don't want to work at night, and you find yourself bringing the laptop to bed every night, no matter how much you try not to, or working on the weekends when you said you're going to be present with your kids, and it just keeps happening like this chronic thing. Or maybe you said, I want to make this season of my life, I need 7 hours of sleep. I would hope 8 to 9, but I need to make sure that I'm getting my sleep. And that keeps happening where you are pushing back your bedtime or having to wake up early to get things done more early than you'd like to. That's when I would kind of check in and say, okay, does something have to give here? Because this is becoming more than just a one-off thing. It's becoming really a chronic thing that I need help with. Also, if you find yourself being a bottleneck in your goals, so you've set like maybe a bigger target for yourself or a goal for yourself, and you feel like it's time for you to up level and evolve to do these bigger things for your goals, but you keep hitting a wall where you can't do what you set out to do, despite you knowing that you're a very capable person, capable and I think most of your audience is woman, then I would also check in because being a bottleneck is probably a big red flag that maybe I need some systems in place to kind of make sure this gets done. And then just pushing past your own boundaries in a chronic, like over and over again way.
Hmm. I'm very familiar with the term bottleneck. It's so funny. I worked with a business coach, actually a pair of business coaches, like I want to say it was 10 years ago at this point, and they both came from a factory background. So the
Oh,
concept of the
yeah.
bottleneck is like very, very ingrained when you work in there was a
Factory.
car factory for them.
Yeah.
Like as engineers, like that was literally their job, was to go around finding the actual bottleneck of the factory. And there was always
Yeah.
one spot that things were slowing down. So for somebody who's not as familiar with that concept, like they've heard the term bottleneck before, but I think sometimes it can be like you conceptually understand something being a bottleneck, but we're not like an assembly line where you can literally go find where the parts are backing up and
Right.
say that's the part that needs fixed. So, are there any ways or any specific parts of business that somebody might notice that, oh yeah, that's where I'm being a bottleneck? Or is it like how would you help somebody find that actual bottleneck or understand
Mhm.
how they're being a bottleneck?
Yeah. So I think I can give an example, but just like the framework that I use, I like people to visualize each component of their business. And I do that with something more boring than the woo stuff called a process map. So a process map is basically just a visual representation of how something works. And I have my clients do that with each engine of their business. So how they attract clients is one engine, so marketing, how they convert those clients, sales, how they deliver their product or service, delivery, and then how they innovate within their business. So there's four pieces that I really want to clear, like what's the visual of your marketing system from like YouTube to VSL to, your email list or whatever the case may be. What's the visual of like your sales, from getting on email nurturing maybe to getting on a call, et cetera. How are you converting people? And then once you have the visual of all those four things, you want to decide in those what I call the needle movers. What are like the essential parts of that process that if they don't get done, the whole thing falls apart, or like crucial for revenue and making money. So like in your sales process map, that might be like converting on the sales call is just like super important. So needle movers and then those leaky areas. They may not be the most important thing, but they're the areas that you wish could be better or you wish could be faster, or that are holding up the line, so to speak. So for the example I was going to give in myself is when I was, first on YouTube, I could edit all the videos and get them all out. Then as my, quality expectations increased, was taking me longer and longer to edit videos. So I had all these videos backed up, but I couldn't get them out because they weren't getting edited because it would take me like 8 hours to edit, whereas like my editor takes her like probably like two. So
Wow.
that's when I knew, okay, it's time to delegate this out. I'm doing a similar thing with other positions in my marketing flow right now with helping me with scripts and someone helping me with filming and those things. When you notice like you could be putting out more in a certain area or you could be doing more to reach this goal, but you just can't because you don't have the capacity to get things out fast enough or at the quality that you maybe want to reach this goal. So once you decide on those needle movers in those leaky areas, deciding whose owns those, if you're a solopreneur, it might be all you, or it might be like a contractor that you work with or someone that you want to bring on. You can start thinking about those things as well. So if you're not in a place to hire just yet, I think how can we first automate, systemize, and hopefully delegate if you're able to in your business, get that just off your plate. So those things can be more efficient, is kind of
Hmm.
how I find those bottlenecks.
Yeah. It's so funny that you bring up this concept that you could actually get slower at a task over
Yeah.
time. I don't know if I've
Mhm.
ever thought about it that way, but it's like if you just want to whip together a video and throw it online, probably doesn't take that long, right?
Right.
But and I know you have a really big YouTube channel, at least in my in my humble opinion. Like I'm like, dang, she's really done well with that. And I'm guessing you're, of the mindset that the more you want to grow there, you do have to put out higher quality stuff, right? It's like
Yeah.
the like just Zoom camera, whatever you feel like talking about that day is not necessarily going to get you to the next level on a channel like that. And so I just think it's interesting that usually you would think oh, the more I do something, the better I
Right.
get at it, the less time it takes. And that's clearly an example of that's not always the case. Like if you want something to be better quality, at some point, it actually would be better to give it to somebody who can do it better than you. And it wouldn't be worth your time, even if you have to pay somebody, maybe they're a higher price contractor, but they're so good at what they do and they get all that time back for you. It's like a win-win
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yes, definitely. And really like coming up with like your how much your time is worth per hour. So if I think of myself as a licensed neuropsychologist, like me spending 8 hours editing is just not a good ROI when I could pay someone whose hourly wage is way less than what I could make in my business if I had those 8 hours back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. And just a note on that, it's interesting because on you, it depends on your audience. Some audiences you can just like upload the Zoom. I think if like for instance you have a really great Instagram following, so maybe folks that come from other places that already have followings. And I see some people they just, post like whatever and they're sitting in front of their couch and they post and it does great. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, but my audience, the more like I guess maybe it goes with my brand also the polished and like edited for retention videos do better."
And that's specifically on YouTube that you're seeing people whip stuff out or,
Yeah.
oh, interesting.
Recently, I've seen some, I mean, now when I say whip things out, these are like experts who you could just give them a whiteboard and they just getting up there and like, spilling off. So it's not
It's good content. It's just not
right.
high production value
Right,
necessarily.
exactly. So they've had 10 years of experience doing what they do. So it's not like overnight kind of just thing.
Hmm.
But the production value is, wow, that must have been really quick to do. You're so
Yeah.
lucky. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, whenever I talk to clients about choosing their marketing platform, it's always like, are you willing to learn the rules of that platform? And I do
Yeah.
think YouTube likes production, right? If somebody's going to sit and watch something
Yeah.
for a longer period of time, it should be a little bit more like nicely done, good camera quality, like, good
Oh,
physics, that
definitely.
kind
Yeah.
of thing. So it's interesting because it's like, there's no right or wrong platform. I think it's awesome that you're on YouTube. I've like dabbled with it. I'm like, I don't have the energy right now for this. But that's a great example of like, hey, if you're gonna do something like YouTube as a primary marketing channel, just be prepared. You're probably
Yeah.
gonna want to hire somebody to do that editing versus something like Instagram. You can just jump on and like face the camera and
Right.
it can do the same thing. Not to say that that's not everybody likes doing it that way, but it is something where, you kind of have to decide what skill you want to learn and where you want to put that energy and all
Mhm.
of it can work. So speaking of your YouTube channel, I saw this on your YouTube and I have to admit I got a little jealous. You said your own business feels almost unfairly easy to run. And that's
Mhm.
my like next level of growth is like, listen, I know I can make a lot of money. I want to have that experience of like, this feels easy. Cause,
Mm.
I think I've just been in kind of this like hustle mode for a long time.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear from you. What are some of the systems that you use in your business that allow you to feel like this maybe feels a little too easy potentially because
Mhm.
that sounds like a dream to me to feel like things are a little too easy.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with the focus again, like what we were talking about at the beginning. I have one program, which is my accelerator. And then outside of that, only have like one lower ticket thing. So just having like two things and the lower ticket thing, I never really focus on as it relates to like in my marketing. It is there. People know about it. I maybe have a few automated emails that go about, but my energy is largely aimed at my accelerator. So all my videos feed into my accelerator, just makes things easy. Everything that I talk about is like within my framework that I already teach inside my accelerator. So I don't have to memorize things. I'm not having to like come up with new things. Like everything is there. So I think just having things very streamlined with one offer helps me a lot, make things feel easy. I have a lot of systems in place, which, it's probably like expected, but like my YouTube scripting template, for example, really, really helps me. Just like everything is in there. My whole life is in Notion and including my business. So think my content calendars in there, things are streamlined. But I would say the main thing would be the focus and then the systems on the back end rinse and repeat. Like I never want to do things twice. I think I got that from Dan Martell. That's one of his quotes, who is the author of Buy Back Your Time. But anything that I have to do twice, it's going to be either automated, put into some sort of process. And I'm always constantly thinking about how can this be either systemized or how can this system be like updated or improved, which takes, especially for like neurospicy folks out there, some training of yourself to slow down, to speed up. Again, like you have to start getting in the mindset that if I slow down to build this system, it's going to help me in the future, and really believe that, so you can fight through like the impulsivity or the hyperactivity in the moment that's like, I'm in something, I can't stop and document this, or I can't send this loom to my assistant to create an SOP because I only have like, this amount of time. And really like getting into the habit of slowing down to speed up, I think helps things a lot, because it's just
Hmm.
going to be part of your culture after that of building systems, to just like automate as much as possible.
Yeah. I gotta say, having done years worth of SOPs and Loom videos and all that, I feel like now and I'm curious to hear your take on AI,
Okay.
but now with things like Claude or ChatGPT or any of these things where you can literally turn a transcript into an SOP in like minutes, I
Yeah.
just feel like there's like no excuse to not do it. It used to be you had to like
Yeah.
literally like either type it up yourself or have a team member type it up and then go check it and all the things. And I'm like, literally, if you just hit record when you're
Yeah.
working on something and verbalize what you're doing, just the speed at which you can create something now is just like
Lightning.
crazy. So,
Yeah.
do you use AI for your systems?
Oh, definitely. Whisper flow, which I'm sure you know, it's like you could just say it really quickly and it's done. And then Loom now has like an SOP feature. You could just take it from that, just talk through it as you're doing it. But yeah, I use Claude. I'm a Claude cowork person, so that helps me out a lot. Like I do a quarterly time log. I'm doing it right now, actually. And just every hour, Claude pops up and it's like, what are you doing right now? And
Oh,
like,
wow.
yeah, I'd
Love it.
ask you like, is this, is it part of your priorities? Is it reactive or planned? And you like, I love doing a time audit quarterly, just to kind of like, it's so fast how we can creep off into like reactivity and just doing things that are not moving the needle.
Mhm.
So that's something I use it for. I mean, it helps me. I write my email newsletters, but I do like a really rough whisper flow. This is what I want to say. Here's the story I want to tell, and say the whole thing and have it use my words to like make it coherent into my newsletter. What else do I use Claude for? I'm just starting to use Claude for Instagram. So my main platform is YouTube, but I am experimenting using like basically talking heads I can do because YouTube, that's my jam. And like taking my words of a talking head Instagram post and like, how could I turn this into like a B-roll using my words and a carousel?
Mhm.
Obviously, since it starts off as my words, it still doesn't sound like AI when they convert it. So I just started that last week, and then it goes and does it in Notion. I mean, yes, AI, I definitely use it for like the productivity, cleaning things up piece. I'm a little like millennial in the sense of having it actually like create things, content from scratch, but I try to use it in other ways.
Yeah. I mean, I actually don't think most people should be using it on the front end
Content
content
side.
creation
Okay,
side.
so we're on the same
Yeah.
side.
And I've played around with it. I mean, my Claude is pretty well trained and I just don't think it's a good idea. I think most people, it's actually very
Yeah.
harmful to their business to do that. But repurposing things or like and I've had to take a break because I'm like, this is way too, like, I'll go down this rabbit hole and then be like, I need to do sales activities. Like, I probably shouldn't be doing this, but learning how to create Claude skills that are based on SOPs. So basically, either all or most of a process can be done by AI. And then if I need a team member to participate, it can be handed off. So even with my podcast, it's like the transcript, it gets turned into show notes, a blog post, the bones of an email, and a quote collection for Instagram,
Oh,
all from
brilliant.
one Claude skill. And then I have a team member who goes and like puts it into places. So she uploads the audio for the episode onto Libsyn and then puts the show notes in Libsyn and then like the blog post and the show notes in WordPress. And then she makes a Canva graphic for Instagram. So like
Oh,
she's doing a lot
beautiful.
of that stuff. But I recently built this skill because I was like, I'm doing so much of this, even with AI, like different chunks,
Right.
and then learning how to like actually train a skill so that it like goes through all the steps and puts out all the stuff based on the
Skills.
content. Oh my
Yeah, game
gosh, it's
changing.
like I'm a nerd on that kind of stuff, and I'm like I said, I'm like I needed to take a little pause because I was getting way too focused on that. I'm like that is not the best use of my time right now, but I think it's something that as a mom, I just am like I don't know how I would be doing any of this without at least some AI right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and then that's why I was asking you about it because I'm like, I know everybody has their own opinions about it, but I think with systems, it's like, I think that's the best place for it to show up is doing the things that are really an SOP type of process
Right.
that don't require creativity or like the energy behind it to really be done
Yeah.
effectively.
Yeah. And I definitely use it with my EA and other team members. So much, definitely. Not just like by myself, but also within the team. It can be helpful.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely. So I think a lot of people listening are probably like me, where they're like, oh my gosh, this sounds so great. I love this concept of building systems, slow down to speed up, good on all of that. And then when the rubber hits the road, like
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when you were talking about the white space piece, and I've
Mhm.
literally been thinking I need to start being more committed to that because I've known that it's good for me to do it. But my challenge is I'll wake up and be like, okay, feed the kids, get them where they need to go, do all the things. And then finally I get into the office and it's like, I have all this stuff I got to get done before
Yeah.
my next chunk of, kid time. So for me, I think a big part of it is like training myself to not just jump straight into stuff. But I think a lot of people feel like, oh my gosh, there's so much I have to do. How the heck will I have time to build these systems or to have that white space? What would be your advice for somebody who's like, I know I want to do this, but I'm so overwhelmed by my to-do
Yeah.
list that I don't even know how I would have space for this right now.
Yes. So for type A women, this is going to be a new habit and you're going to treat it like forming a new habit. So there's a few different pieces when you're forming a new habit. The first you want to think about is like your stage of change. Like how ready are you to actually make this a change? Are you in a season that you can maybe slow down and start implementing this? And if the answer is no, then maybe you just think about putting it on pause to the next season, or how can you move to the next stage of like readiness. And then once you are actually ready to have the white space, then the next level before the like habit hacks is identity. Really thinking about who is the woman who has white space in her life and her week every single week. What version of you makes space for that, has the capacity for that, and then you can start moving to that, embodying that version. It's kind of like not fake it till you make it, but really thinking about who you are becoming with this habit change, not just like the actual outcome, but like the who inside. And so once you've kind of identified like the version of you, the woman that does this kind of thing, and you're moving towards becoming her, just like, when you maybe start working out and you're like, who's the version of me that like, gets up every day and does some exercise? It's the same kind of thing. And then once you've kind of identified that version of yourself, then you can apply all the habit psychology because you've aligned with who you're becoming and you can actually make it stick. The first piece is to start off really small, like make it easy. So you're not going to maybe start with the 3 hours that I'm trying to get you to, but maybe like 30 minutes during your week. And you're going to block it off in your calendar. And that way you have that time and make it really easy. So you maybe have some like pre-planned idea of what you're going to do during that time, especially if you struggle with like stillness. And then when that time comes, it's a non-negotiable. So you put it in your digital calendar as a recurring event, and it's a non-negotiable that you do every single week. Now, when that time comes, you may have to like set an alarm, two alarms maybe, to actually take the time to take for yourself. And if you notice yourself skipping the alarm, set the alarm across the room, like an actual physical alarm. And then if that still doesn't work, then you can kind of go back and readjust. Like, is this the right time? Maybe it's not a great time to actually stop the flow of work to take some time for yourself. And then another thing I like to talk to people about is not expecting the difficult emotions to go away during white space. So many of us want it to be like, void of mom guilt or work guilt, and that you're not going to have any anxiety, or you're not going to struggle with being still. All that still may be there. And the more you focus on that going away, the louder that stuff is going to get. So instead of trying to avoid those emotions by continuing to work or finding something to fill that time, you're going to accept that they're there and think to yourself, how could I, even if I have to carry this with me in the background, move in service of what I value most, which is this white space that I know is going to be valuable not only to me, but to my business, to my children, and how I show up in the world. I'm really thinking about, okay, yes, I might have like the work guilt. Like, if you imagine your emotional experience like a pie, maybe one slice of that pie is going to be like work guilt. Another slice is going to be like home and mom guilt because there's like laundry you should be putting away, quote unquote, should. But maybe you could bring in other emotions to sit with those difficult emotions. So maybe you meditate and you bring in feelings of peace. So you have a slice of peace in there. Or maybe you paint, like you're working on a paint by numbers and you get halfway done. So you bring in emotions of pride. So it's not just the guilt and the anxiety sitting there in the pie. You're like rounding out your emotional experience. Now, I will say the more and more you do this, those other pieces are going to get smaller, but that's not the goal. Those things will go away. But the idea is to not focus on them going away, focus on bringing in other emotions in service of what's most important to you.
So do you use your white space just, I don't want to say just for enjoyment, but how do you approach your white space experience?
Yeah, so I do not like to do it for like productivity sake. I do like to do it for enjoyment. So the women that I work with, we have to actually talk about what is a hobby? How do you have hobbies? Like, what is that? Like, who is she? And so having things that you can actually indulge in for your own and creativity, or what's the word? Relaxation. I try not to put too much self-care in white space, like getting your nails done or a massage, because it comes to like another thing you got to check off your list, but really focusing on pleasure, mindfulness, those sorts of things, self-reflection. There's a book called Unicorn Space. Have you heard of Eve Brodsky? Okay, she's the author of Fair Play as well. Like, she has a Fair Play deck. I actually have it here. That helps women divide like the household responsibilities in the home with their partners. And she wrote a book called Unicorn Space, and she likes to think of this kind of space as like connection, creativity, and completion. So connection, can it have like a purpose of like, maybe it's a club that you're in, maybe it's an accountability, something that you can do, or even it has an impact on other people, or volunteering or something like that. Can it be creative, like a creative outlet, something that gets you in a space of play? And then completion, like something that you could say, okay, I completed that, like a hobby of like painting or flipping furniture or something like that. So those are her three C's. But I really just think about like enjoyment and like mindfulness, or as like things that you can start with, as far as like hobbies to do during that time, and not making it so much about like self-care or checking things off.
hmm It's funny. I feel like I had like a very different perception of what the purpose of white space was. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, you're going to sit there and it's going to be quiet and you're just going to like channel all the ideas for your business. But this is like
Yeah.
very different than how I was imagining it. So that's really interesting to think about it in a totally different way like that. So my last question for you
Hmm.
is, so we were talking a lot about systems and you gave us some ideas about how to find those systems or decide which ones to work on. Is there any system that you're like, you should always start here? Is it 100% personalized? Which system actually gets built first? Like, if somebody's got the white space piece going and they're like, all right, I'm going to tackle this building a system experience. How do you recommend picking where to focus? Is it I think you kind of talked about that map of the business, but is it like maybe there's one system that all women would benefit from tackling?
Yeah. Well, I think of two when I think of like the must-haves. They kind of go hand in hand, so it's kind of one. But your task management system and your time management system. So whether you're a business owner or a career executive that I work with, those are the two that I'm trying to make sure that you have. before you walk away from me or before anything else is because it encompasses everything. Like your task is like everything you have to get done, and your time is like what you're going to actually do on a day-to-day basis. For the task management system, the most important thing I would offer business women is to stop holding everything in their brain. It is possible to have nothing on your mind, and you're going to do that. It is possible with a capture habit. Anytime an idea, a to do, anything that comes to your mind that you're holding, your brain is for having ideas, not storing them. That's a David Allen quote, who's the author of Getting Things Done. So that more, I don't care what task management system you use. I use Notion, which I love, but having something, even if it's a paper system, that you can, as soon as an idea comes to your head, get it off. And then you'll have a list of, in this system of a bird's eye view of things that you can pull from when you're then planning your weeks and planning your days. I don't want your life to be on post-its and random journals and random like notes apps. Like if you're a high level woman, that's just not enough. And then the second piece of that is the time management system. So once you have things out of your head, being able to organize and prioritize your schedule in a way that's still moving you to those larger goals while also getting like the little things done, like signing the field trip form and all those sorts of things. Having a system to actually contain your time, because when you contain your time, you reclaim your time. I like to say, is also really important. So I teach a whole planning system that's a little bit probably more intricate than we have time to go into. But the idea is first booking your non-negotiables and your priorities, those weekly routines that take care of you, your family, and your highest work. And so those are going to be things like meal prep or your CEO meeting in your business or your white space for yourself. And then after you've booked your priorities when you're planning your week, then you're going to use batch days to batch like items together so that you can use the most of your time, and then blocking your actual day, especially if you're neurospicy, to be able to put your idea of what you should be doing that day into like actual real time.
Yeah, I feel like if anyone is ever waking up and being like, I don't know what I need to work on, and just staring at their computer for 20 minutes trying to decide what to do, you need this process, because it should not be uh just every day is kind of a wild card experience unless
Yes.
you're putting those fires out. So, well, Tiffany, I really enjoyed talking with you about this. You might have heard her giggle a little bit. Her daughter was in the room. So mom's doing business. This is what, this is how we get things done.
Yes,
But
thank you.
I just really enjoyed your perspective. And I feel like a lot of the books and stuff you reference, I'm like, I read that one. Yep, I like that one. So just really
Nice.
cool to have all of that synchronicity. For our listeners who want to go deeper with you, where can they find either? I know we'll link to your YouTube for sure. Is there anywhere else that you'd love to send them for them to be able to hear more about your work or get connected with you further?
Yes, so I have a white space GPT if folks want to grab it. It's a free resource, speaking of AI, that I've trained to help you start carving out actual time in your week. I think would be really appropriate for the conversation that we just had. So it's just basically for high achieving women trying to get more time and space in their calendar. I'll give you the link so people can just grab that. And then yes, on YouTube is like my main area over there. It's like my world if anyone wants to come join me over there.
Amazing. Well, I will definitely be checking out that GPT because
Nice.
I need some serious white space for implementation, because I feel like it's
Right.
very random for me nowadays. So, well, anyway, thank you so much for your time and expertise. So it's really great to have you on the show, and I hope you guys will go check out her work and get that GPT and start making sure you are really using your time effectively, because I think there's so many women that have so much to offer and so much that they want to do, and I think so many of them are getting bogged down by trying to hold it
Mhm,
all in their brains.
mhm,
And I just,
mhm.
I think there's a lot of women that really need this kind of stuff to be able to enjoy their life and have the impact that they want to have. So I really appreciate the
Yes.
work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Yeah. And thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll see you here next week on the Nurse CEO podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. And if this episode got you thinking about how you're actually wired to run your business, Your next step is to take the CEO type quiz. Because here's the thing. Most of the business advice out there was built for someone specific. And if that someone isn't you, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how many strategies you implement. It's just never going to feel right, and it's never going to work as well as it should. Knowing your CEO type changes all of that. After you take the quiz, your results page will walk you through your natural strengths, your biggest blind spots, and a concrete game plan for your offers, messaging, sales, and even your calendar, all built around how you actually think and lead. Not generic advice, your specific direction. It takes about 5 minutes and it's completely free. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And if you already know your type and this episode resonated with you, share the quiz with someone else who needs it. The right framework at the right time can completely change how someone sees their business. And honestly, that's exactly why I made this. All right, I'll see you next time on the Nourish CEO podcast.